Okay. On that note, we're going to move on to some quarter season college football playoff predictions, folks. We're officially at that time of year. We really are. We're finding out who could be in, who could be out, who's going to compete for a spot, who isn't going to compete for a spot. We've learned a lot these first 5 weeks, and you know what? We should digest it all. So what I'm going to do, first off, I'm going to lay out what every team in contention needs to do to make the college football playoff. I'm also going to specify this. We're going to introduce this term. This is a college basketball term. So those college hoops that are also college hoops fans, first off, a lot of great content coming on the way for college basketball. I'll get to that soon once the season starts. Second off, you're familiar with the term bid stealers, and we're going to introduce it in college football now. And that is a team that wouldn't get in as an at-large, but because they won their conference, they're in. And there is going to be one definite bid stealer, probably two, based on what we've seen in the Big 12 after Utah lost against Arizona. I also will specify this in terms of that G5 slot. This is just a little underrated thing that I saw. Army and Navy are both unbeaten for the first time since 1945 through 4 games. Army-Navy, if they play at the end of the year and they've both kept up this pace, that could be a playoff game. That could be a playoff spot on the line. There could be a playoff spot on the line in that game. I just wanted to preface that because that is a really underrated story to follow this season. Anyway, so there's going to be 2 bid stealers. So you have to be a top 10 team in the country to those SEC, those Big 10 teams, and those couple ACC teams in the mix. You have to be top 10. You don't. If you're 11 or 12, if you're the 11th or 12th best team, you're not going to make it because there's going to be a bid stealer taking your spot. So I want to preface that big time because that may be an underrated part now, but that is going to take a team season right there. So we're going to divide this into 3 tiers. Okay? 3 tiers. And I'm going to give what you need to do in my prediction. Tier 1 is the 12-0/11-1 tier. These teams are, I'm going to say an over 90% chance these teams make it. Ohio State, Texas, and Alabama. Those are the tier 1 teams. Those are teams that could go 12-0, maybe at the least 11-1. Tier 2, 11-1 to 10-2 teams. These teams are likely in unless if something happens. Georgia, Tennessee, Clemson, Oregon, Miami, and Penn State. So we've reached 9 spots now. What does that mean? Unless if you're Georgia and you've played 4 of the top 6 rated teams in the country, you need to go 10-2 to make the college football playoff. You do. If you lose more than 2 games, you're most likely not getting in. So to all those teams out there, we're at 9. We have 1 more spot, might I say. And that 1 spot is going to be incredibly interesting. You need to go 10-2 to make the college football playoff. If you go 9-3, you're probably going to be biting your nails on come I guess selection Saturday. Is that the term for it now? Oh, I don't like this, man. It's too bubbly. It's too college hoops-ish. Oh man, I don't love it. But anyway, tier 3. This is the bubble. This is the bubble right here. 10-2 to the 9-3 tier. These are teams at best could go 10-2, at worst could go 9-3. Ole Miss, they still have Georgia on the schedule. So, folks, they probably need to win out. They need to win out outside of that Georgia game. USC, because they played a really tough non-con with LSU and Notre Dame, could go 9-3 and get in. It's unlikely. They probably need to go 10-2, but they could. There's a survivor's chance. Missouri, really easy schedule. They're going to be one of those teams where the record is better than their actual, I guess, power rating. Notre Dame, man. Notre Dame is the only team in this entire mix that, if they go 10-2, might have a shot to not make it. Because that Northern Illinois loss is really, really, really tough. And they have a really easy schedule, for those of you that don't know. They were banking on A&M being elite. Didn't quite happen. We don't quite know with them, but not looking great so far. So that poor strength of schedule and that bad loss to NIU could really hurt them. Louisville, and on an outside chance, I want to talk about this team because They could have a weird path to the college football playoff, and that's Texas A&M. Do I think Texas A&M is one of the 10 best teams in the country? No, they have not displayed that. If you look at their schedule, however, their two toughest opponents in the SEC are Missouri and LSU before they play Texas, who they both get at home. They could be favored in both of those games. Texas A&M could be favored in every single SEC game until they play Texas. My point being, if that happens, if Texas A&M comes in unbeaten in conference play against Texas, they could make the SEC championship game. Am I saying that that's going to happen? No. The logistics work itself out. I'm not sure if the team, how they are on the field, is able to amount to that. I'm not sure if that's going to happen. But there's actually a possibility that figuratively happens. So, to preface, Tier 1, Ohio State, Texas, Alabama. Those teams are highly likely in. Tier 2, these teams are likely in. Georgia, the only team that could go 9-3 and get in. That's right, Georgia. Tennessee, Clemson, Oregon, Miami, Penn State. If you're Clemson or Miami and you go 10-2, Clemson's going to get in because they played Georgia and lost in the year. That will probably get them in. But if you're Miami and you go 10-2, you will be sitting on the bubble. I'm sure of that. They dodged a bullet against Virginia Tech last weekend if you didn't see it. So with that being said, I don't have a drum. Otherwise, I would do a drum roll. But let's get to the predictions here. So I'm going to start. Number 1 seed, Ohio State. Easy prediction, number 1. Number 2 seed, Texas. Number 3 seed, Clemson. Not Miami. I think Clemson wins the ACC. I think they're the best team in the ACC. I talked about them last week. They're very underrated. I have a bet on Cade Klubnik to win the Heisman at plus like 4,500 or 5,000. It was bet like 3 weeks ago. It's looking good so far. 4, Utah. I think if you are the 5 seed in the college football playoff, I think that is the best spot to be. I think that is a better spot. The 5 seed is a better spot than the 1 seed. Because when you're the 1 seed, you could be playing a better team than when you're the 4 or 5. When you're the 5 seed, not the 4. 5 seed, Alabama. The 6 seed, Georgia. 7 seed, I'm going to go Tennessee. 8 seed, Oregon. 9 seed, Miami. And at 10, Penn State. 11 seed. This is the toss-up seed right here. I chose Ole Miss. For now. That road test against LSU is going to be a playoff elimination game for them. They're on thin ice, though. At number 12, that interesting group of 5 slot, I think it's going to be Boise State. I think it's going to be them. So that's my playoff predictions for this year. Who do I think is going to win it? My pick, as of now, is going to be Texas. I think Texas wins the national championship. And now since we can see the bracket, since we can see everything unfolding here, do you see my logic as to why the 5 seed is the best spot to be in the entire bracket? That's because Ohio State would have to play Oregon or Miami, while Alabama gets to play a group of 5 team in Utah, the Big 12 winner. No diss on Utah. That's just to say I think they're a step below what Oregon and Miami are. The 5 seed is subtly the best spot to be in the whole bracket. Just saying. Those are my college football playoff predictions. For now, to preface, long story short, if you lose more than 2 games this season and your name is not Georgia, you are not making the college football playoff. That's the bar. That's the standard.